Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into something truly special. We're going to explore this deeply personal, incredibly powerful bond between two souls in the narrow streets of ancient Makkah. It was a bond of friendship and faith that literally changed the course of Islamic history forever. We're looking at a story of unshakable loyalty, immense sacrifice, and a legacy that still resonates so strongly with us today.
So to really understand the depth of this history, we have to start with a fascinating question. Who was the Prophet's absolute closest friend before the first revelation even came down? Long before the prophethood, before the followers, before any of the massive historical shifts we know about, there was already this profound, foundational friendship. We're talking about Abu Bakr. He was a man of deeply noble character, a highly successful merchant, and someone who was widely known for his genuine compassion way before he ever converted to Islam. You know, it's actually kind of mind-blowing when you look at the sheer level of status he held in his pre-Islamic life. His original name was Abdul Kaaba, and after Islam came, the Prophet gave him the name Abdullah. He was just about 1 to 3 years younger than the Prophet. As a very prominent Meccan, he was famous for his deep knowledge of genealogy and history. He even carried the really heavy, respective responsibility of overseeing the payment of blood money, which was known as asnak. And get this, he was an incredibly wealthy textile merchant with a massive working capital of 40,000 dirhams. That was a staggering fortune back then.
Now this next part perfectly captures exactly who he was. According to Islamic tradition, when the Prophet returned from his miraculous night journey to the heavens, a lot of people naturally doubted the story. I mean, it was a massive claim. But Abu Bakr, he didn't hesitate. Not for a single second. His immediate, completely unfiltered response was simply, if he said it, then it is true. It was this pure, unwavering faith and that total lack of hesitation that earned him the legendary title As-Siddiq, which means the Truthful.
Because of that absolute rock-solid trust, he became the very first free adult man to embrace Islam. And he didn't just accept the faith privately and keep his head down, he immediately leveraged his prominent social status. He went right to work, tirelessly trying to gain converts among the powerful tribes during those really difficult early days in Mecca.
Remember that massive 40,000 dirham fortune we just talked about? Well, he certainly didn't hoard it. He dedicated his entire fortune to his new faith. With a heart just absolutely full of compassion, he actively protected the unhelpless in Meccan society. He systematically used his own wealth to buy and free persecuted slaves who were facing terrible torture from the idolaters. To put that into perspective, he basically depleted his entire 40,000 dirham capital for the sake of Islam. He literally put everything he had on the line.
And you can really see the sheer endurance of a support when you map it out. Abu Bakr stayed right at the Prophet's side through 13 grueling years of hardship and intense persecution in Mecca. He was right there for the critical, dangerous migration, the Hijrah, to Medina. And as the early Muslim community had to defend itself, he was completely steadfast at every single major historical juncture, including the battles of Badr, Uhud, and the Ditch.
Okay, this brings us to one of the most wonderfully emotional details from the historical sources. There's this beautiful narration by Aisha, who tells us that when the command finally came to migrate to Medina, Abu Bakr actually wept. But listen, these were absolutely not tears of fear about the dangerous journey. No way. They were tears of pure joy simply because he was the one chosen to accompany his beloved best friend on the Hijrah. Hiding in the silence of that cave, he stood as a literal shield for the Prophet.
But as we know, every incredible story has its severe trials. June 8, 632 marked what was undeniably the darkest day for the Ummah, the global Muslim community. The passing of Prophet Muhammad brought down this immense, crushing grief that genuinely threatened to tear the young community completely apart. It was a moment of absolute, unprecedented crisis and heartbreak.
In the chaotic midst of that overwhelming grief, a leader was urgently, desperately needed. The grieving companions gathered to elect a successor, and, at the specific urging of companions like Umar, Abu Bakr stepped out of those supportive shadows where he had always comfortably walked beside his friend. He was elected as the first rightly guided caliph. He stepped up, standing tall with a heart like a mountain, becoming the unshakable pillar of strength that the community so desperately required to survive.
What is so profound about his election, though, is his inaugural address. When he took on this immense power, he didn't boast, he didn't demand blind obedience. He just simply said, "If I do my duty fairly, help me. If I am mistaken, correct me." I mean, wow, that quote is just incredibly powerful. It perfectly humanizes him and highlights this profound dedication to justice, deep humility, and putting the well-being of the community way above his own ego.
And his steady leadership was exactly what that fragile, nascent state needed. Look at his immense political achievements. He successfully maintained the unity of the Ummah during its most vulnerable transition period. He unified various Arab tribes under the centralized authority of the Caliphate. Crucially, he led the military campaigns known as the Ridda Wars against the tribes that renounced Islam after the Prophet died. In doing so, he firmly ensured the absolute religious and political cohesion of the state.
Which perfectly sets up what is arguably his most enduring legacy. Consider the state of the Quran at that specific time. The verses were scattered across various materials, parchments, leaves, stones. And tragically, a huge number of companions who had memorized the book by heart were lost at the Battle of Yamama. The danger of losing the Quran forever was a very real, critical threat. Recognizing this massive danger, Abu Bakr took decisive action. He commissioned the scribe Zayd ibn Thabit to gather every scattered verse and compile them into a single, unified book.
Because of this monumental, completely world-changing decision to safeguard the text, Abu Bakr earned this incredibly fitting, beautiful title, Jami al-Quran. That essentially translates to the guardian, or the compiler of the word. Through his foresight, he ensured that the light of the Quran was preserved entirely intact for all future generations.
Abu Bakr lived an incredible life, characterized by total devotion, strict justice, and surprisingly deep simplicity. He eventually passed away at the age of 63. And there is something so deeply poetic about that, isn't there? It perfectly mirrors the exact age of his best friend, the Prophet, when he passed.
And that brings us to the quiet, emotional resolution of his story. After giving quite literally everything he possessed to his faith and his community, he was laid to rest right beside the Prophet in Medina. Two extraordinary friends, inseparable in life, peacefully reunited in the earth, in light.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. How can a legacy of absolute truthfulness and unwavering friendship shape our own modern lives? Abu Bakr Al-Siddiq wasn't some untouchable being. He was a human who simply chose truth, chosen sacrifice, and chosen loyalty at every single turn. Think about how we can apply that incredible strength of belief to the challenges we face today. Thanks so much for learning with me.